Okay.
Yes.
Okay. We're back on the clock. We're back in session. What have you got for us, Ben?
Well, morning, guys.
Morning.
I don't know who's responsible for ordering the nice weather, but I've sure enjoyed it. Well, it's warm in here. It's not quite 80 outside yet, but this morning I got a paper from Butler Fairman Seifert that they should have sent me last week. We discussed the property on County Road 56 for the offer that we're going to make. I need to have the Commissioner President sign that.
I remember that.
Here you are, Mr. President.
Okay, I can't hardly wait.
Hope you don't run out of signatures.
Yeah, depending.
What's that? Yes. Yes. If you want to take a copy of that, you can, or I can send it to you. It's up to you. It's just one paper today.
That's done. That's cleaned up.
Okay. The next thing I had, just from prior business that was discussed, you guys wanted to wait till Todd was here, from the study from NERC I had done for the road striping, for the new policy. I didn't know if you guys had any further discussion on that or questions, or if you're okay with what was proposed from NERC, and we can accept this and monitor and move forward.
We've basically limited the striping to what they recommend, right, as far as...
Per MUTCD standards, yes. Actually, we went below that because MUTCD standards was for 3,000 cars more a day, and we took it down to 2,500. And then we also took it down to road widths. And some that was would be a continuing of that corridor, like 35 going to Allen County. That one we kept striped because we figured that as a route of travel from the sections that did meet the criteria and the ones that didn't. That was all based on engineering judgment in this report. But there are several that, yeah, we're not going to be striping much more in the county.
Good. Okay. Well, didn't you tell me that even like railroad crossings are $2,500 each to paint?
No, it's about 1,250.
Is that both sides? Okay, I don't know where.
Yeah, it's like $650 a staff.
Yeah. Amazing what that costs to, but those have to be done. I mean, that's a requirement.
Them's ours to stripe. We should have all those done now. And most everything that was going to be striped was striped this year. Not everything, but I did have most everything striped this year.
What does 35 get? Center stripe and
Center stripe.
they don't get any fog lines or whatever you call them down the sides, right?
No, but they have, but they won't moving forward.
Moving forward, just going to be center stripe? Okay.
No passing stripes, no passing stripes. There is.
Yeah. Just nothing on the edges.
Fog
Yeah,
lines.
not on the edge, right.
I call them fog lines. What do they call them?
Fog lines.
Are they all called fog lines? Okay.
White edge lines, fog line.
I guess the question is, we want to adopt that recommendation or do additional striping at additional cost? And,
More than that, I mean, and somebody's going to assume the responsibility for that.
yeah,
Because then what are you going to base it off of? That's the big thing. That's the major factor.
yeah. That gives us a baseline as far as
I
what
think we should.
yeah, what our obligation actually is legally.
Yeah, I think we
Right.
should adopt the recommendation.
Yeah, I would agree if NERC did the study, I have confidence in them, for sure, so,
I mean, I sent it all to you. It
Yeah.
was right from NERC, so.
yeah.
Make that motion.
Yeah, I'll move that we adopt the recommendations from the NERC study on striping.
Second.
A motion and a second on the floor. Are there any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, same. Motion carries.
And the other thing I got for you guys today is just a question for direction. Last Thursday, I received the information I requested from Solar Group Company. Curtis Nordic sent it to me.
Light Source BP.
Yep, Light Source. Sent me their information I requested for the road use agreement,
Oh,
for their amount of traffic, routes, loads, widths, lengths. And then they even sent me a spreadsheet of the detailed ingress, egress points for each location, and they're supposed to flag those as well. So I gotta start looking at that. But originally, you guys asked about having a consultant on board to help get that established. I guess at what point do you want me to bring them aboard? And then, because once we bring them aboard, they're gonna start accruing costs. So, you know, I know at some point, Light Source is probably gonna foot the bill, but I didn't know when and that discussion, or,
what do you think, gentlemen?
Well, I think it's going to be a lot more efficient if we bring Baker Tilly and Rick Hall in at the beginning of the process rather than get halfway through and then have to go back and do a bunch of revisions and so forth. I mean, they've done so many of these now for other counties and municipalities that they've got the formulas down pretty pat to make sure that we get our maximum benefit of the hard surfaced roads and all of that other stuff that we want to include. So I would suggest that we get them on board.
it would be better, yeah, the sooner the better, that way they're
Yeah.
in it from the start, but I just didn't know how we was gonna do the funding part of it.
And they will be paying for this
They will be paid by the developer.
by the developer.
Yeah, that'll be part of the economic development agreement.
What happens? They're gonna be paid up front? Are we gonna be as we go or off the end? Because the reason I ask that, what if this project is turned down? What's to hold them accountable to make that payment if it's not paid up front?
Sports Park Group.
And just turn around and walk away and say, we're not gonna pay.
Well, and I think any of those, and correct me if I'm wrong, Jim, but virtually any of those payment agreements are not going to follow through if the project doesn't go.
Sure.
You know, I mean, that's pretty much, yeah, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you're not gonna get them to agree to pay in advance unless you give them an out, that if it's not approved, and then we end up paying for it. But it's probably worth it, you know, to get expert advice on things. I mean, Ben thinks it's good to use a consultant, you know, somebody else. Susan and I won't talk about, Susan and I wouldn't know. Have someone who knows.
So, okay, that leaves me then with the question, still the question, do we pay we require them to pay as we go? Once every 30 days or something?
Right to weigh in on
Yeah, so that's the question for,
You know, and that's a facet of this I don't understand. In other words, I understand it, but I don't like it. In other words, when you come to town to do business, and again, I'm not taking sides here, I'm just thinking out loud. You come in town to do business and you know what the tax rates are and you decide if your business model works according to the tax rates and then you move forward. Well, now we tell these people, well, we might give you an abatement, but can't say we want economic development money, but we know that's part of the program. It's almost like going to the license branch and saying, hey, I know it's a $500 to register my vehicle, but if I give you 100 cash, could you push this through for, you know what I'm saying? It's just, we write these laws, these tax laws, and then we say, well, for that entity, we'll give a break, but they'll kick back here, but for you, you pay full,
Well,
you know?
the difference is in the EDAs and road use and decommissioning agreements are all part of the ordinance.
Oh, I know,
So it's
I
not,
know,
it's
yeah.
not like a side deal
Yeah, I know.
with that, but the economic development agreement is specifically required because the solar companies don't create the amount of jobs that you would normally expect to be discussed with a tax abatement. So they've got to compensate for that somehow. So that's the theory behind that.
Oh, I know, but
Because you don't have the
Right.
local income tax and the other ripple economic
Right.
benefits.
But, yeah, but neither do like confined feeding operations. You know, there's a handful of people that work there, yet they have a big, and Susan,
They wouldn't qualify for a tax abatement.
right, I
don't
know,
believe.
but they should. In other words, to me, they're the same, it's the same thing, you're doing business. I asked Carla, she didn't answer me by email. I want to know what AEP or Michigan, Indiana Michigan Power, whoever, do they pay, do you know, any personal property tax on their equipment they have installed in DeKalb County, such as transmission lines, substations, that kind of stuff? Do you know if that's taxed at all?
I would have to look, all the personal is self-reported, and the assessor's office would be able to answer that better than I would, but I
Assessor?
can see,
Because I
yeah.
just want to compare, and me and Mike discussed this, and there are some differences, don't get me wrong, between AEP and, let's say, BP Solar, but then again, they both generate electricity, so they're the same there. The difference is AEP is regulated to set rates to customers, and I get that.
Yeah, AEP is a public utility.
Yes.
As opposed to, the solar companies are just
Right,
treated as any other private business would be.
Right.
At this point, because they don't generate they don't provide utilities to
Right.
the public.
but they both are business entities making a profit, paying taxes, and I'm just growing very weary of how we, I don't want local government to start acting like federal government, and that's, we'll give here, but take from these people. Take from these people, give to those people, and it's just, this needs a lot of thought on my end, just to, and it's like with Auburn Sports Group, and I'm not, again, criticizing any of that, but we really chalked up a lot of legal expenses and probably didn't do our due diligence first before doing it.
I'm shocked.
Not us,
No, I know.
everyone, us as a whole group. I'll take some credit, I'll take some heat on that too. Because now those bills don't get paid unless the bond goes through. So those attorneys are going to get paid regardless. It just matters whose pocket it's coming from. And I think before we say, hey, bring on Baker Tilly, bring on whoever, you got to get those bills coming. Is this thing going to fly or not? Do we have I think we're putting the cart before, or are these folks going to get the abatement? Are they going to come up with an economic development plan that
Well, they
will
have
work
to.
acceptable? But I'm just saying, are we going to agree to it? I think we should agree to that before we should start getting attorneys involved and, you know, we better figure out what's in the cake before we try to bake it, I guess, so.
So with a quick search of AEP, there are multiple personal property and real property in here. And the amounts are all over the place. Like one I looked at was, for the year, was over $12,000 that they pay. This one's almost $50,000. So I think that you'd be better with talking with the assessor's office.
See what they pay.
Since they do the personal property, they might have it all condensed
Yeah, I
easily
appreciate
see
that,
it.
yeah.
better.
And again, I just want to look at this at all angles. I just want to make sure we're treating our taxpayers fairly. And you know, Mike and I have had some conversations, which I've enjoyed. I just want to, I think we need to talk about this a lot more before we start spending a bunch of money and then wonder how we're going to pay for it.
And I guess I'll go back to what I'm really thinking on this, what Ben is thinking, or what he would like to have these people on board, and that they bill the developer at least once a month, pay as we go. So nobody's on the hook for it. Nobody gets, you know, off the end if it's not agreed upon, that we don't get stuck with that bill.
That's why I'm thinking we need to have an agreement before we iron out the detail. In other words, we got to have a basic agreement. Are we going to allow this or not? What is
Well,
the, you know?
Yeah, but before we can even get to that process, we need to have this road agreement.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
That's the agreement we'd have to have in place.
The agreement for them to cover the expenses is going to be part of the economic development agreement. So, I mean, there's a sequence that has to be put together.
But the economic agreement, the development agreement, has to be agreeable to us, the amount, and then the abatement has to be agreeable to them. And it's just very confusing to me. If we had a low personal property tax to start with, we wouldn't have to go through these hoops. Instead, we have a high person, it's just like with SDI. And, you know, when they recategorize, 4 and 5, I can't remember what it was. They,
Oh, on the mini mills, yeah.
you know, and it's like, you know, if the rate was low, SDI would just pay it and they wouldn't care. Instead, we'll give you this long of abatement, but then it'll kick in here and then we're going to recategorize. It's like when you go to New York City and watch Hide the Pea Under the Shell and the guy moves the shell around. Where's the pea now? You know, it's very frustrating to me.
It is, but I mean, the reality of the situation is we don't control that stuff on a local level.
Can
You know,
we control local personal property tax rates?
No,
We can't?
no, that's all DTLF. I mean, DeKalb County already collects the maximum levy.
Can we reduce the levy is what I'm saying.
That would be pretty stupid.
Well, no, think of it this way, though. Let's not use terms like stupid
Well, I'm
because
sorry, that would be very counterproductive.
maybe, but I'm just wondering if people would come to our county because, hey, they have a low levy. We know we can do business there. We know we're not going to have to 5 years from now when we want a new piece of equipment to.
But levy and rates are two different things.
Okay.
Levy is the total amount divided by the number.
Oh, okay, gotcha.
Divided by the number of people paying in equals the rate.
Okay.
Okay,
So if we control the levy, though, we control the rate, is what you're saying.
No,
No?
State controls.
yeah.
State controls it.
State tells DeKalb County and every other municipality how much they can collect.
Yeah.
And then they set the rate based upon the taxpayers.
So
I see.
that's how things like the solar developments lower everybody's tax rate, because
And I get that.
if the levy that we collect is, let's say $100, and you've got 4 people paying in, everybody pays $25. Then the solar company comes in, so now we've got 5 people paying in, so everybody pays $20.
Let me ask
I mean,
this
that's
question
kind of
then.
oversimplified, but
And I get that. Let me ask this. If it's divided by 5, but their contribution is 0, how does that lower the tax
their
rate? Because it's an
contribution is not
EDA.
0.
Well, the contribution is economic development, which doesn't go to general tax base. It goes to projects that we determine we want to use it for.
That's got nothing to do with the taxes they pay. They pay property tax on the underlying property from the beginning. The real property is not abatable.
Oh, on the
at
real,
all.
you're talking real property. I was talking about the improvements.
Well, the improvements, if they get an abatement, they pay no tax on the improvements for the first year, and then it
Yeah.
phases
Yeah,
in.
graduates, yeah.
But
Okay, so you're saying on the real properties though, since the assessed, or the value goes up, it lowers the taxes for everyone because it's shared. I get that.
And the levy is based on assessed valuation. So
I see.
if they do, let's say, theoretically, a $200 million solar project that assesses at $150 million the first year, let's just say. Since we're at the maximum levy, that they pay $150 million, or they add $150 million assessed value and pay, let's say, $10 million in taxes. That's $10 million that everybody else doesn't have to pay. So the tax rates come down accordingly. And you'll see that if you look at the DGLF website, you'll see just pull up the 2022 approved budget or on the DGLF site. It'll say rate lower due to increased assessed valuation. So you'll see in the individual taxing units where that actually happens all the time.
And this is on the real property side,
Yeah.
not the personal property.
Well, no, it's total collections. It's total
But if
collections,
they're-
but all I'm saying is if you give somebody a tax abatement, you don't abate the real property tax.
Right.
You only abate the personal property
The personal
tax.
property end of it, yeah. Okay. Interesting.
But that money goes to a different entity, doesn't go to the general fund under the abatement. That's negotiated.
It goes the same place all the other property taxes go. I mean, all the taxing units gets their cut, but it's lumped in with the with all the other property.
I thought the EDA was at our discretion to use, in
That's
other
got,
words.
the EDA doesn't have anything to do with property tax.
I know, but if they're not paying the tax, I understand it increase the amount and lowers the rate, but if you're not collecting the actual money in taxes and instead receiving an EDA payment, we determine what happens to that EDA money. It doesn't go into the general fund.
That's two different animals.
I understand. I'm just saying, I'm looking at all facets of where this money in and out, you know.
The economic development payments are not in lieu of taxes.
Well, they kind of are though, really.
No, they're kind of not.
Well,
Really?
the thing is, here they are, here's why they are. We're not giving you the payment unless we're happy with the EDA
Well-
amount. That to me is in lieu of.
The EDA payments are in lieu of income tax that we would not be able to collect from employees, and the other economic. Part of the calculation ends up being a percentage of the abatement, but that's not really what the purpose of the economic development agreements are. I don't care whether it's solar or any other facet.
I get it.
But
I'm just saying, let me ask you this. If, let's say, a confined feeding operation wanted to come to town and they only employ 3 people, and they say, hey, we're going to put up a $75 million building, and we're going to offer you $3 million over 10 years on EDA, but we want an abatement, are we going to give them the same preferential treatment? Because they're not creating jobs, but they are creating higher tax. We're going to lower the tax base because we're increasing $75 million worth of,
assessed value ratio.
yeah. So are we going to
Well-
give everyone the same treatment? That's my concern.
Well,
But we have to say whether or not to approve it.
no, we don't have the say whether to approve abatements or not.
I understand, but we have we look at the abatement and we decide if we like it and say, are we going to go with this project? And I think what's fair for solar is fair for confined feeding, is fair for anything that,
Well, but at this point, the legislature doesn't allow abatements for ag. Now, they're talking about that. But a CFO would not qualify for an abatement.
Really?
At this point, no, it wouldn't.
and that just don't seem right to me, but, okay.
I just got one thing I want to add. We had that meeting, executive session, and Baker Tilly was in on Zoom. And the one gentleman we talked about this kickback money in order to go through the economic development back to the tax entities, and I understand that. So it gets split out, goes back to. He makes the statement, yeah, and then they can all do their fun projects. So it's not committed to what's needed to be spent. In other words, it doesn't have to be used for the general expenses of the county. It can be used however they want to use it, basically.
Well,
Am I not right?
well, yes and no. We decide when we negotiate the economic development agreement where that money goes. It doesn't have to go back to all the taxing units. It can also go into the general fund or into a specific account that we designate. In fact, the recommendation is that it's not split with the other taxing units, but captured by the county. And if the taxing units have a particular project they'd like to do, they can request part of that money. But what I would like to see is that we commit that to county projects. And my personal preference would be a good share of it anyway to road work. Because we're really upside down on that. And specify how we want that money spent.
It's not the commissioners decide where that money's gonna go. And roads, I mean, obviously,
Is that set in stone?
Yes, the commissioners are responsible, just like we, with the economic development agreement for Auburn Renewables out here. The commissioners are negotiate and sign off on the economic development agreement. The council worries about the tax abatement, but we negotiate the EDAs. I
don't recall, on the tax abatement for the sports park, I don't recall being asked, how do you want to spend that kickback? The plan is it all goes back into the sports park.
There isn't on that one.
There is no kickback or economic development
Oh, it's a
agreement
TIF.
with the sports park.
Yeah, it's TIF, that's a
Yeah,
different
That's
issue.
redevelopment commission, and we don't have any control over that.
Okay,
Part of the agreement
I take that
then
over.
was that they were not going to seek abatement.
Right, yeah, exactly. On any other project, actually.
Right.
Yeah, so that's a whole different animal.
Yeah, I misspoke on that.
Yeah.
I didn't mean to open a can of worms, my mind's spinning with
Boy,
this.
did you ever, though.
Yeah,
Well, it's razzle-dazzle taxation, it's not taxation anymore. I got a new word for it, manipulation. It's manipulation of the taxpayers' hard-earned money.
Well,
And we got this little thing we can do here, and we go here, and, well, we don't have to do that if we do this, and it's just,
well, one of the problems I have, and I'll let you
Yeah,
finish
go ahead,
after
yeah.
this, I've watched our country in the last, especially the last 40 years, go down the tubes due to the federal government's manipulation of money and taxes. The education system is a prime example. Hey, we'll give you states money, but you got to start teaching this, this, and this. They get addicted to that money, and then they can't say no to it. And I just don't want to get into the same route saying, hey, we'll allow that entity and we'll limit your taxes, but you can't have that. Now, if you play by these rules, we'll give you the same treatment. If it almost gets into a pay under the table thing. I just don't like tax rates, and Mike is correct, and I appreciate you correcting me on this. The state needs to do something about the rate or something to where we don't have to offer abatements and economic agreements. The tax should be what it is, and if it's too high, it should be lowered. If it's too low, it should be raised. And I just don't like these agreements picking winners and losers, and energy is going to be the next thing. Here's what I see coming down the pike, guys. I could be wrong. I think 10 years from now, we're going to see energy be twice as expensive as it is now because we're pushing these. Solar's fine. I have no problem with solar. It's never going to be a primary power source. You know why? When the sun quits, we paid $55,000 in one weekend in this county because Texas went down, the renewables went down. And it's crap, and this is a policy of the federal government that's been pushed by this woke agenda, and it's going to kill us before it's over. And I just don't know if I even want to be a part of this scheme, so.
well, the other side of that, though, gentlemen, is that we have to play the cards we're dealt. And until we're sitting in Congress or Senate in D.C. or in the State House, we've got to deal with what we've got here. We have all said at various times throughout meetings that, we're tired of sending money to Indianapolis or Washington, D.C. and not getting it back. So I think it's incumbent on us to make sure that we get as much of that money back for DeKalb County taxpayers as we can. And we have to maximize
The
that.
other counties.
And that's a
right,
reasonable
there.
argument. I just don't like being pushed into that due to a policy where the taxes are supposedly too high to start with. If their business model can't make it under the current taxation, that means either the business model doesn't work or the taxes are too high. One of the two. One of the two. Either the business model doesn't work or the taxes are too high. It can't be anything else. So are we pushing an agenda because we want that couple $1 million in EDA payments? Are we going along with an agenda that's false because we want the money? And to me, that's, if we kick out 6,000 acres of farmland because we want that couple million, and I get your point, Mike, fully. I really do. I just look at the big picture sometimes. What you're seeing may not be the best thing.
Well, let me add a little bit to your big picture then. If in fact we end up with 6,000 acres of solar development, it's not going to be a couple $1 million. It's going to be somewhere in the $40 to $50 million range over a 10-year period.
And that may be.
Yeah.
I'm
No,
just
there's
saying
no
though,
maybe about it.
is it in our total best interest long-term is the question, especially if the average person is now paying 30 cents a kilowatt hour instead of 12 cents a kilowatt hour. That extra millions won't matter when they can't afford to pay their electric bill, and I think that's coming.
Whether
It's
or
kind
not,
of like the free money we've been receiving on the COVID.
It's all
COVID
eaten up
money.
in inflation.
And we get it free, we think, oh boy, this is good. We go to spend it though, inflation has eaten it up.
Before we
And
can spend it.
inflation will continue to eat it up, and the same thing is going to happen with those renewables. Increased electric prices down the road into the future is going to eat it up. And one more comment, I got one more comment, and then we're going to move on. We got,
I'm gonna make you start making an appointment.
we had the wind turbines. We had the wind turbine issue. It was froze out with the ordinance. We've gotten along pretty well without the wind turbine money. I think we'll get along just fine without solar money if we need to.
If we need to. I want to look at all angles. I'm not saying yes or no to
Control
either.
the spending?
I just think we really need to dig deeper than we have.
Yeah.
Well, I would submit that whether we approve or kick the solar out, it's not going to have an iota of an effect on energy rates anywhere else, and the other counties surrounding us are going to soak up that money, and our taxpayers are left holding high end, you know what.
Maybe yes, maybe no.
Yeah, I can see that point. But then again, if someone has to eventually take a stand and say, this isn't right, and just to say, well, we'll miss out if we don't,
That's
is
carrot. That's carrot.
that's join the gang, because if not, the gang will beat you up. And I don't know. I got to think about this. I got to think about it.
Better do. Anyway, moving forward. We have, do you have any other miscellaneous, Ben? What you got?
Just one other thing I wanted to touch on. I printed off all my email correspondences I had with NIPSCO, and then I also typed up a narrative with the dates on it. And I took that to Jim on Thursday last week and give to him. And then just an FYI on that, this was sent to us, the original estimate, on August 2nd. So our 90th day will be October 31st. But it was signed and returned to them on 9/21 of '22, which was 50 days after it was sent. So it was well within the 90 days, but the 90 day will be up next Monday, the 31st. I sent it all to Jim. We had some discussions on how to proceed and who to contact, and he worked a little bit on that Friday, but wasn't able to get a hold of who he needed to, and Jim can elaborate on it if he wants, but I just wanted to bring that up, what I had, and give to him.
I have that narrative, and I've got some other things that I've picked up in the meantime. But if you want what Ben put together, I can get that to you probably later.
Can I ask you something, Jim? You've read the estimate, when they wrote the estimate, and it says, basically sign here if you agree to this estimate and we'll get a contract to you. Isn't that bindable? If I write if I make a quote to someone and say, I will provide this service for this amount of money, and you have 90 days to accept, and if not, the price will go up possibly. If I sign within that 90 days and give it back to them, isn't that legal binding at that point?
That's what we argue. The problem is when they give you the paperwork, it always says an estimate on the bottom, and they say it's not enforceable until.
Okay. Well, let me ask you if a good,
But I think-
is
I
a good
think-
faith estimate at $1,500, okay, let's say they come back, hey, we need to increase it to $1,800, we need a 20% increase. Can you go up 5,000% and say that that was a legitimate estimate? Or did they hogwash us into this?
Well, no,
You see what I'm
they're
saying?
saying it was an inappropriate estimate, and they fired the guy who.
That's their
gave-
problem, though.
No kidding. You're preaching to the choir here, okay? But what are you gonna do? I believe, if I'm sitting as a judge, and I'm not gonna be the judge in this, obviously, I'm gonna be on the county side, but, if lost what I was saying. Happens from time to time. It always comes back.
Senior moment.
Senior moment, exactly. I believe that when they say you have 90 days to accept this for it to be enforceable, and you respond within that 90 days, that should be a winning lawsuit. can I tell you that's what's gonna happen? I don't know, because they're still taking the position it's only an estimate until everybody has signed on the dotted line. But if they're making it locked in, that you got a contract.
If the estimate is good for 90 days, I agree. That's,
Yeah.
that's.
What's the point of an estimate if it's, can be whatever it, well, we estimate 1,500, but it's 2 million now. I mean, but.
We accepted it within the 90 days, okay? But we didn't send them a check because they wouldn't send us.
The contract.
The invoice.
Right.
State Board of Accounts doesn't permit us to pay a bill that we don't have an invoice.
Right.
Right, can't pay it on the estimate.
Can't pay an estimate.
So within this 90 days, last week, they sent me a contract,
Right.
they sent me an invoice,
For 55,000.
$55,011.35,
Right.
all within the original 90 days.
Is it what my argument would be, is it reasonable if I give you an estimate for 1,500 to come back at 55,000 2 weeks later? That is ridiculous.
I agree.
And if I did that on a car and said, hey, Jim, that car is 50 grand,
Probably
and then I
wouldn't sell
told
too
you it was 5 million, would you be upset with me?
Probably wouldn't sell too many
One of
cars.
one of the first things I said to Ben, when he told us about this, is, no, it doesn't pass the smell test. Okay? That doesn't mean the Indiana Regulatory Commission, if they're the ones that have jurisdiction over this, are gonna side with a local county.
I think we should press the issue, guys.
I do too.
Well, but that's what we're doing, and that's
Yeah,
why
yeah.
that's why Ben brought it up here today.
Yeah, we're gonna contest.
I think we should send them a letter saying, we want an invoice for the $1,500 and we'll pay it,
And it's-
or we can go to
it's-
court. Who pays our litigation expenses if we win in court? Do they have to pay our expenses or not?
I don't know how the Regulatory Commission operates. Most instances, we pay our own.
Is that how it works?
But
I've never been to
I can tell
court,
you it
so I don't
does
know.
with the Indiana Utilities Regulatory Commission. I can't tell you that. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay, so we'll contest it.
Let's contest it, move forward.
You need anything but you need a motion on that, or we just have a consensus?
I think you have consensus. It's
Yeah,
going to be in a minute.
What did the second, it came back at 55?
The actual invoice was $55,011.35.
And what was the original?
Was 1,500?
15.
I gave you an estimate.
14,
The original estimate was $1402.99. And then they called me on the phone on October 12th and told me it was going to be $55,245. But then they end up sending it for $55,011.35.
Okay.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah.
I have a copy here of my notes that I give Jim, if you guys want to look at it. And I got that back in my computer, but that's my correspondences with NIPSCO from the emails that I have here, and then the phone conversations that I had with them. And there ain't any of them disputing the price. I mean, they just said it was an internal mistake and where you go with it. I mean, they've sent me a DocuSign, want me to sign the contract, and then also sent me a DocuSign for the invoice to accept it, and then I received another one this morning reminding me. Of course, I haven't done nothing with it.
You know what we ought to do? We ought to strike the 55,000, write the 1,400 and some in there and sign it. Could you do that?
I'll let you rule on that one, Jim.
What if you did that? If you strike it and initial it and sign it, you're just asking for a modification of the contract at that point, aren't you? How do you know? They might blow right through it. They can't estimate a job within 5,000%. I can't imagine they actually know how to read.
Well,
So-
that estimator is gone.
Well,
yeah,
But they should have to live with it, not the county.
That's right.
yeah, it's their estimator, it's
It's
their
their estimate.
employees, it wasn't our employee, it was their employee. He messed up, he messed up for them, he represented them when he did the estimate.
the only reason I'd really like to resolve this is I don't want this to hold up our project.
Right.
Because this is a major
And
part
they
of the
know
project.
that.
Right.
Yeah, and they know that they got us, but they don't have us. We have other
They know we
options.
need the gas.
They know we have other options.
it's not
We
like
can,
it-
we can go propane if we have to, especially if we go with a hybrid electric system. If we have to, we can go propane.
Yeah, we could.
I hate to do it because it's more expensive, but
I mean, on theory, we really won't need the gas till fall next year. I mean, on theory, but I don't know
Right.
how long something like this will take.
Even though I said you just need a consensus, I would like to file something
communications.
yet this week, whether it's regulatory commission or whether it's state court, because the 90 days isn't up yet when we file.
Yeah,
Yeah.
let's get that filed.
I think, I don't think you can probably file in state court. I think RURC is
Well,
going to
I
be
said in the
your,
alternative,
yeah, it's
because
going
I'm
to
not
be your,
sure.
your
I
first,
told you earlier today, I tried to get a hold of
Yeah.
somebody from the Utilities
Yeah.
Commission Friday. and
Yeah, the
didn't have any
OUCC.
Success, but, assuming we're done before the end of the day today, I'm gonna work on that.
Okay, good deal.
So you
Yeah, I
now
would-
want a motion saying, you now want a motion for them telling you that you can do this? Or you don't care? I have the consensus in.
go ahead and file a complaint. Go ahead and file the complaint.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, moving on.
That's all I
Anything else,
have for
Ben?
you. That's all I have for
All
you.
you had. Let's get into the second and third reading of the ordinance by title 2022-R-14 hyphen DCC 8-1-2-20, portions of County Road 60, to turn that over to the town of St. Joe. Second and third reading, I'm looking for a motion.
I'll move to approve 2022-R-14 on second and third reading.
second.
A motion and a second. Are there any additional comments? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, the same. Motion carries. I'm going to date that.
I'll do it after you guys sign it. I don't know if you guys, here, you gotta sign the back.
I got to say, oh, gee. I think I'd learn by now, wouldn't you?
It's all good. Are we still holding off on the, oh wait, what was ever decided on the Mill Street? Did we get were you gonna talk to somebody?
We are holding off.
Okay,
That's on the back burner.
got it.
What was that? I was reading it.
The
The,
Mill Street in Spencerville.
Mill Street damage, Spencerville. Okay, well, we got Ben here. Let's jump over into the buggy ordinance. I'm going to bring that back up. Redo the numbers and bring that back to a public hearing and do something. So I'm looking for recommendations from the commissioners as to what that rate, we should set the rate at for the yearly license registration. We've got some numbers from Ben. It looks like 625 would be in the ballpark to gather some funds to help repair these roads when they need to be repaired. Thoughts, comments, suggestions?
Well, I've said from the beginning, and I've had emails and talk, you got to take emotions out of this issue and just look at facts. And how quickly will these roads get damaged and needing repair? And what is the actual cost to repair them? And we're talking about specific damage here. We're not talking about, I've heard the argument, well, hey, milk trucks, which there are no milk trucks, there's garbage trucks, they tear up the roads. Yes, they do. Those garbage trucks, though, pay huge. If you look at what they pay, and they look at a service they're providing, let your garbage pile up on your curb for a week or two, and or a month. That's a needed service,
And they pay the tax.
and they pay the tax, and they do not cause the specific damage I'm talking about. I think you're going to see on County Road 64 or 8, I can't remember, 64. I think 2 to 3 years from now, you're going to see that road being close to needing replaced. I'm not talking about filling the trough and fixing it. I think you're gonna be needing some serious work on that road. And the estimates, are we gonna be happy with just filling in a trough every year or two versus having a road built to the standard and maintained to the standard that we build it to? You know,
Well, obviously, if we completely rebuild the road, we're going to end up with the same damage all over again.
that's what I'm saying. But
So, and I think the other process would be to fill the trough and then to chip and seal over it, seal everything together and make it look like it's a road again instead of
Right.
3 roads with these
With a Band-Aid.
different colored stripes or inlays going down them.
Well, and this is the problem I have, Bill, and we make choices in life and we should have to pay the consequences. The same people that are using these buggies also use vehicles, motor vehicles, and they pay taxes on those. But just because you pay tax on one vehicle that was set by the state comes in and says, hey, this amount of vehicle should pay this much because it does this much damage on an average miles. There is no parameter to determine how much you should pay for a horse. It matters how much you run that horse up and down, what roads you use. But we can measure the actual specific damage. And I think what you have to do is like Ben did, you have to come up and say, okay, here's about how many miles I think are going to be affected. Here's what it's going to cost. We think there's going to be 200 buggies that'll sign up. I agree with his estimate. And I hate it, but I agree with it. It's reality. And if you choose to use that horse and buggy, why do you use a truck to go to work, a truck to go to the lumber store, a truck to go wherever, but to go to church, you use your buggy? That's your choice, fine. That's your right. But it's not your right to tear up the road and not pay for it. And so I think that's where I'm at. The specific damage is evident, and I agree with his estimate. And I'm just saying, I asked you to come up with something, and you came up with it. And I think we got a master road builder here, and I think he sees the damage, his guys see the damage, and I think we're there.
I want to make a comment that 10,000 a mile, we paid more than that for a single chip seal cost this year.
That's what I'm saying. I don't even think that's enough, but
This is just,
And this just is not a Ben's expertise. He went to other counties and gathered information on what this costs, what the damage looks like. And I got a call from Mr. Hostetler 2 weeks ago. He's down a road up in Topeka. It's not the one you guys are on, another road. He said it's clear through to the gravel.
do the gravel.
Through the gravel. I got a comment from a friend of ours that lives down in Allen County. They get up in the Graybill area. They got, some of those roads have buggy lanes along them. When the buggy lanes get so bad, the horses don't want to travel down them, they go out on the road.
And we don't have the
And don't
right of
use
way
the
to make buggy
Don't use the
lanes.
buggy lane.
We don't have the right of way available to make
No,
buggy lanes.
well, we couldn't afford it anyway.
Well, we'd have to redo the ditches, move
You
power
still-
lines, all
yeah.
sorts of things.
The cost would be astronomical.
Yeah, that's not even an option.
No, but that's what they do. They wear out the buggy lane, then they go out and start wearing out the highway.
My opinion is we ought to reopen public hearing on this
Yeah.
and give people opportunity, now that it's an issue and they hear it, people that live on these roads to give their 2 cents and opine on this issue. Because like I said, this is specific damage that is measurable to that particular use. And I think it needs to be addressed.
Well, what we need to do today now is to establish a rate to insert into that ordinance to bring it to public hearing.
I would move that we use Ben's estimate to start.
Consensus, we need a consensus or motion on that? I think a consensus.
Well, you're gonna take input, and I wouldn't make a final decision on it.
Right, it's got to go to the hearing and then,
Well, I would start with that and propose that.
Yeah.
Let's propose that to the public.
yeah.
Let's propose that to the public.
Mike?
I'm in agreement about fees, I'm just not sure about the numbers yet, so I'm fine to move the discussion forward and talk about where we land, but I just haven't made up my mind yet on the amount.
Bill, we didn't advertise for public hearing today. Take input from people. I would wait to you can let people know the direction you're leaning, and they can comment on that. do that today. But you don't want to make it seem like, well, you got to get unanimous approval for X number of dollars based on what Ben came up with.
Okay.
Just because you want to retain the integrity of the hearing process.
Yeah, but we need a number going into the hearing, right? We
Gotta
can't
give
go in
people
that
an
hearing.
idea what we're
Say,
thinking.
you talk
We-
about-
I-
you haven't voted on it, but you can say,
Yeah.
you talked about using Ben's numbers, and Ben, you can tell people who are here what those numbers are.
Well, and
They
that's,
should be thinking about it.
and that's what I would suggest is, here is our master
Here's a
road builder
proposal.
who has visited other areas, we've talked to other people,
I've had,
here's what we're coming up with, here's what we're thinking.
it's not like I haven't had input on
No,
this.
I know.
From our-
I know you've had a ton of input, but if
Right.
you want to have a public hearing, you have to advertise.
Right,
You have to give
obviously.
people an opportunity to, no, I know, I'm stating the obvious and I understand that, but, and I think it's pretty clear for anybody who's listening that you're leaning toward, without committing, you're leaning toward the numbers that Ben came up with.
So what is our next step then?
I think
Advertising
we
You
should,
have to advertise for.
for the public hearing.
I think we should advertise a public hearing and use the information that we have as
Fill the
our,
blanks.
as our proposal,
Yeah, as the beginning of the.
as the
Okay.
beginning of the negotiations.
So when would you like this public hearing?
Sooner than later,
The soonest can be the 14th with advertising.
November 14th? Let's do it.
Okay.
Are there any other, the light? Do we need to discuss the lighting any differently?
What was our initial, because that does have a little concern to me, you know,
Well, the original was 60 inches above the roadway, yellow amber flashing to the north and red amber flashing to the rear. And I think we only specified one light.
Yeah, we did.
does it really matter, what does a slow-moving vehicle generally or a tractor have on it when it goes down the road?
Has a slow-moving emblem, triangle, and
But
they
at
are
night, though, it has
required by
lights.
state law to also have those on the buggies.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, but what do they have to have for lights, though, if they're operating at night? Do they have to have anything? Tractors, they do, don't they?
I can't answer that.
The only reason I'm saying is it, because I do feel for them in a hardship. In other words, if they already have a amber light, let's say, that's up there and it's a omnidirectional 360 degrees, would that be sufficient? In other words, if I just want them to, a beacon, hey, there's something there, I don't want to hit it. Red versus amber versus white, I'm not so sure.
Yeah, I think white's kind of, can be very confusing.
Right.
But
Yeah,
I
you don't
don't
want
want a situation, as we talked before, where everybody has to go in and retrofit.
That's what I'm saying.
You know, I don't think that's.
I would like to hear
reasonable.
the communities that use these, I'm open to their input on the
Okay.
lighting.
Let's get
Because I
input
don't
on
want
it.
to cause a hardship. You know, if they already have it equipped and we get a consensus, hey, yeah, that is working, I have no problem with bending on that.
And I think that's probably a good suggestion, is a rotating amber light. It's very, when you see one of them going down the road, it gets your attention.
Well, because of like emergency vehicles, the
Yeah,
yellow
well,
light flashing or the amber
The
light
highway
tells
trucks,
you.
the state highway trucks, they've always got that.
It can't be blue and red, obviously, police, you don't want to emulate that. And white, like you said, can be confusing and blinding.
You don't know whether it's coming or going, or.
Yeah.
You know, with
You know, in
Well,
boats and
another
planes, we
thing,
use.
amber or orange would show up well in the fog.
Yeah.
I would think also.
And it is a caution, amber is a caution.
It is a
light.
caution.
So I would probably remove the restriction that has to be red in the rear flashing and amber. I would just say an omnidirectional amber. And as long as it's visible on the vehicle, I don't know about 60 inches or 36, as long as it's visible. I would say the highest point of the vehicle, invisible, would be my opinion on the
Highest point.
highest point and visible.
and I'd got something in an email, I don't even know where it came from, that had all kinds of stuff about buggy lighting in it, that I thought it was pretty, I know what it was. It was a handbook that one county obviously gives to,
Yeah, I read that part of that handbook.
that hands out to,
Yeah.
when they do the license plates.
The other
I thought
thing-
that was pretty, helpful.
pretty in-depth.
Yeah, I think the other thing going off of that we need to add is the pony carts.
I'm sorry?
The pony carts
Oh, yeah.
with the flag.
Yeah, the bicycle flag, yeah.
Yeah, on the pony carts.
Yeah, I thought that was pretty helpful, too.
Yeah.
Shouldn't that have a light also? It's the same thing. Someone's riding in it, what's the difference?
What was it? Was that LaGrange County had that? Yeah, LaGrange County has the flag.
Okay.
Slow moving emblem and the flag, I believe.
So would that not run at night maybe then too, though?
Or they shouldn't be. Not something that small and that
Just afraid
vulnerable.
of someone getting run over and,
Oh, yeah, if they're out at night, that's crazy.
I mean, if they want to take a risk and get hurt, that's
Yeah,
up to them, but I worry
yeah.
about someone on a motorcycle hitting them and getting killed, you know, because they,
That's being,
Guys, if you don't mind, I'd like to run through these numbers with you too, real quick, because has been a controversial subject, and I just want to clarify with what and how I come up with my numbers.
sure.
Last week, you guys asked me to come up with a cost estimate to repair these roads for a 3 to 5 year cost damage. So I averaged it, just took middle of 4. And then you asked for just that corner of the county. So I took Newville Township, Spencer Township, and Concord Township, and got the paved road mileage for them roads. And I put them on that spreadsheet. So there's 50.04 miles in them 3 townships, and there's 44.37 of gravel. I didn't figure anything on gravel. They're gravel.
So the majority is gravel then?
Well, no, the majority's paved, but not by much, because you got 50.
Can you tell me those miles
You
again?
got 50.04 paved, 44.37 gravel.
Oh, I thought you said 50 total. Okay, got you, I got it.
50 total paved miles.
It's almost 50/50 then.
Yeah, so I just based this on that corner. You know, then talking, because I really don't have, I'm no buggy expert, horse expert. I don't really have the duration here with the damage to have a factual number for our own county. So therefore, I rely on people that's lived it. So I've talked to Whitley County, I talked to LaGrange County, and LaGrange County told us when we went up there that they do this every 1 to 3 years, and it's based on $10,000 a mile. Well, I sent you guys a horse repair cost a month or so ago, just for the troughs. My number was $98.28. So I figured at $10,000 a mile, because that's just, you know, $140 shy.
And that's just to fill the trough.
That's just to fill the trough. So that's basically what I based this off of at $10,000. That's with no cost inflation over the years. I spoke with Bill, and so LaGrange County did theirs every 1 to 3 years. So with less buggies here, I figured let's just round it off to every 4 years, doing a road every 4 years. You look at LaGrange from the numbers that Bill gave me, they've got 15,000 Amish population with 7,500 registered buggies. So that comes out to 2 people per buggy. DeKalb County, I'm not for sure, I've heard numbers all over, so around the 400 range. So I figured the same numbers. So I took 400 population and divided, that'd be 200 registered buggies, okay? So you figure doing that every 4 years, you'd be 12.51 miles a year turnaround and do them roads every 4 years. That makes a total cost of $125,100. So you take that, and then I was asked to figure in a plate cost and administrative cost in that. I'm just shooting from hip, $15 each, so $30. So that would be a total yearly cost of $125, $130 to the county. So if you take that divided by 200 registrations, would be a plate fee of $625, $65.
Those administrative costs, so
That would be for them coming in and getting the plate, getting the decals and the paperwork.
I think you only figured 1 plate though.
One plate, so yeah.
But
that's
you
what I
didn't
said, this-
multiply it times 200.
No, just one, right?
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the administrative.
That'd be for one plate,
Yeah, for 1 plate.
right?
And again, that's just filling the trough. That isn't chip and sealing over it after you're done. That's just filling the
And these,
trough.
I feel these are pretty accurate numbers. I mean, depending on the damage you get. I mean, there again, you tell me the damage we're gonna get, I'll give you the true number.
And that was my only reservation on this whole thing. We are seeing damage, and we can estimate by the other counties
Right.
what the damage will be. Even though they have more traffic, we know that that road has taken this much damage already. Just even that 2 miles is gonna be very expensive to fix. So we can either wait and say, okay, the damage is there, now we're behind the 8 ball, we don't have the money, and now we gotta make it 1,000 a plate because we don't have the money to even start.
Right.
Or we can start at a reasonable amount to get this thing fixed, or to get money in the coffer, and 250 ain't on the table with me anymore. That's not even close to being right. So I'm back to Ben's estimates, going into this public hearing, I think we're there.
And I know it's high, but it's just the numbers that, from what I had to come up with, I'm not
Called
trying to-
reality.
You know, I mean,
Okay.
you got the statistics to back it up. I mean, the cost and the materials and, when we was at LaGrange, they said a lot of their roads, they gotta do every year. You know, and mostly every 2 or 3. I figured one road every 4.
And they have a lot more traffic, but they have a lot more people paying, and they're still not keeping up.
The only other thing we could do is figure this once every 5 years would change the cost. You know, but you're still gonna be 400 and something, probably. Anyway, that's how I come up with it,
Appreciate that, Ben, thanks.
you know.
Gives us a,
Appreciate the time you spent doing that.
Yeah, well, I know you guys look for a number, and I know it seemed like a lot, but I don't know what, I mean, if there's another way of figuring the damage and the estimate, I mean, tell me and I'll figure it, but from what I've
anything else on
seen.
the budget ordinance? Okay, set for meeting, November 14th. All right, that on the, okay, anything else, anyone?
2 things. There was a note left for me, last week you had told Carla that you guys wanted an executive session for evaluations, possibly? Is there a date you're wanting those?
What are we evaluating exactly? What's
The
the
department heads.
We're just doing
that
performance evaluations for the
you guys are
department
in
heads.
the ones we're in charge of?
charge of.
Appointed.
Yeah,
Well, the
Ben,
non-elected.
I can't rip into you.
Chris and
Chris,
I'll let you, but it won't mean anything.
we're going to evaluate Susan anyway, just
Yeah.
because,
right,
You can
just for
practice.
fun, yeah.
Okay.
straight Fs.
I'm out of here. I've already put in my 1 day.
Yeah, you're one day.
I just caught that.
December 15th, is that the kind of the deadline on the evaluation submittals?
Yeah, I
Seems
think
like I
that's
heard that.
what we were thinking.
Yeah.
I do have one more thing once we decide on this.
The other question I had
Oh, I'm sorry.
is, we all got the, yeah, we all got the request for an executive session from that solar
Officer,
thing.
Officer Schiller, that was on my list.
So is that a thing? Jim?
What? I didn't hear it.
I don't even know if you were on it. This request for an executive session from the solar people?
Council and Commissioner. I'm a no on that.
I haven't seen this.
I don't think it's
Anyways.
necessary.
Evaluation.
I think it's
I think it's opening some distrust to the people if we do that.
not going to do that.
Needs
If
to be
it's up
above-
to me to call that, it's not going to get called.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think we
No
just
way.
ignore that.
Yeah, I
For me.
don't see any reason.
I
for it.
agree.
I don't see any reason for it.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, it's going to be
something like
counterproductive to the conversation.
engenders the doubt.
Yeah, it's distrust,
Process.
yeah. It needs to be open to the public, everything.
I get enough
ready.
accusations of this being under the table, in secret, behind closed doors.
Right.
Well, it's
Not going to go any further.
just like taking kickbacks from SDI because we didn't.
Yeah,
go
that's, yeah,
red
I'm
on
not
the
going to
snow.
throw
I mean,
gasoline on the fire.
You know, that stuff is just specious.
So did we set the?
So would you like me to reply
Performance?
to them and tell them that we're not going to do an executive session? They need to
Anything open meeting, get on the schedule.
schedule for an open meeting. Perfect.
And-
Okay,
And,
evaluations.
and once they submit their development plan, it's all public anyway.
Yeah, they need to make an appointment.
7th or the 21st or something.
7th is good with me.
Shouldn't take all that long. I think we need to review those evaluation forms that Dottie sent, because there was a whole mess of them. Pick one that we think that is going to be the best one to use,
Yeah, okay.
and then we can move forward with that.
Starting at like for lunch and come back and start them.
We have pretty short days. Can we work it in during the day?
If we could be done after at the pledge on that day, then we could come back and do up until noon and just be done for the day.
Let's do
I will
that.
look and see if we have anything. Start them at like 10:30 or something.
Okay. Thank you, Susan. Like I say, that was on my list also.
Okay, that's all I had.
That's all you got?
all I got.
Anything else?
I got one other thing. The gentleman that spoke earlier said that, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think on the gentleman that didn't want the solar in his backyard, he said they lied to him about this meeting they were having. Did he say that he misled what the meeting was supposed to be at Byler Lane or not?
No, he was saying that the solar company misled Byler Lane. They didn't, they
Well,
weren't,
did you read the card?
yeah,
The card says, "My name is Curtis Nordick, and I work for solar development called Light Source. I'm excited to introduce our company and share information about the Philosoph Solar Farm that we're planning in DeKalb County. We invite neighbors such as yourself to learn more about proposed solar farm and the community benefits." They flat out said, "We're solar and we're gonna meet."
well, yeah, and their point, and that's why I said that everybody lost some credibility with that,
Okay.
because, and I called Eldon Byler first thing Saturday morning after I heard about it. The representative for the solar company, whoever does their social engagements, didn't tell Byler Lane that that they were the solar company.
Oh,
So Mr. Provines called Byler Lane and said, basically, they said, if you host this, we're going to boycott Byler Lane. And so, at least from Eldon's story, the solar company wasn't exactly forthcoming with the purpose for the meeting. But, I still say that people threatening a local businessman livelihood over whoever he does business with is just inexcusable.
it's funny though, the pictures here shows goats standing next to or sheep next to
Sheep,
this,
yeah.
and then honeybees and flowers, and it's definitely staged the picture, right? But I just wanted to make sure that we're not accusing, because like I said, I haven't made a decision on this. I don't like false accusations either way, and I just think everyone needs to be honest and upfront and play their cards. So.
Well, I did call Mr. Nordick and suggest that they might want to reach out to Byler Lane and offer some apologies for
Sure.
for the missteps.
Yeah, I agree with that. Okay, that's all I had.
Yeah. I got one more thing.
Okay.
Got an email from Mayor Hartman in Butler. Fire Department would like to use the old humane shelter for
I got that too.
training, extracting victims. I don't think they intend to burn it. I think that wasn't in the email. But anyway, where would we be on something like that, liability-wise and?
You want them to have a certificate of insurance, and you want to add the county as a name, and you want to make sure the dollar amount that's acceptable to you, it ought to be whatever our limits of liability are now.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I have no problem with them using it as long as someone gets hurt. I don't want.
I don't think they're going to burn it down. It's just a search and rescue exercise.
But if someone falls and
Yeah.
breaks their
That
neck,
by the wayside.
Yeah.
At one point, we were talking about somebody had expressed an interest in purchasing.
yes,
Is that still alive?
yes. I believe there are appraisals going out right now. They're getting appraisals on the property.
Oh, that's interesting.
And that's fine, because this use for the firefighters training would have already taken place by the time this happens. They just need to know it's not going to be a regular thing,
Yeah,
in case you end up deciding to sell.
I have no problem with it as long as being a government entity, as long as they have the proper insurance in place.
As long as that doesn't jeopardize the sale to this buyer.
Well, we can just make it contingent on, hey, if the buyer takes possession before you do your training, it's off.
Yeah.
It's off.
Yeah, as long as we still own it at that time, you're fine, but if they've,
There's a matter of condition. If something is in the buyer, I mean, if some buyers can be picky.
I don't think
And
it's,
if there's something happens, are they going to come back and say, oh, now, wait a minute.
Consider
Last person
There's
I would
damage.
expect
We don't want to, we're not going to pay what we originally
but that
offered.
building,
Consider
they're
the
gonna- it's a
condition of
scraper.
Not too much. No,
If it was a nice
should-
building, I'd say no,
Okay.
but it's a
What-
scraper.
What's
at
the
this
limits
point.
of liability? What do we need on liability insurance?
we just need to call, somebody needs to call, I'll call, or Susan call.
I'll call Mike Shurick and ask him
Yeah.
what he
do
recommends.
it.
Somebody needs to get a hold of Mike.
I'll say, Mike, what do you recommend for us?
And whoever his assistant is, if he's not available.
I'm just worried about someone falling and breaking their neck or something like
So
someone.
you gotta have the certificate of insurance.
You wanna answer Mike then, when you get
Yeah,
that
I'll talk
number?
to Mike and I'll also call Mike Shurick. I'll call Hartman and Shurick both.
And then call Mike Hart.
It may be covered now if they know we already own the ground.
I know,
We own the building.
I want their insurance company to pay though and not ours.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Well, I'm sure Butler's got at least $1 million CSL, so
oh, they gotta have at least
we should
that.
be,
At
we
least.
should be
Should be
well
okay.
covered, yeah,
I was surprised if they don't have 10 million. I mean,
probably.
Yeah.
million
Main
doesn't
thing
go
is
far.
they've got the insurance.
Yeah.
Whatever it might be.
Yeah.
Okay. That's all I had. I'm done.
Me three.
You beat three?
We had enough fun for the day. You know, we were right up to noon. Dinner time.
I could use a lunch.
Okay. Anything else, anyone? Then we are adjourned. Thank you all. Until next Monday.
Thanks for plating my new truck for me. I appreciate that.
Like, I don't even know what to do.
You're right. Well,